Hooligans, we back for another episode of the Hooligans League podcast. Filming this Saturday night before the clocks turn back, just so we can have this ready for you first thing in the morning before the games tomorrow. So let's get into it. Another crazy week. Super high scoring. We had 6 teams with 145 plus points or so. 5 with 150. First time we've done that all season, I think. 2 of those teams, though, being losers. That's just how wild it was. Now we have 7 teams who are 4-4 or better. And then 3 teams who are 3-5 trying to catch them. So 10 teams, like right in the thick of it, or already looking like they're playoff teams, and then 2 teams trailing behind. We had another 2 trades. We got the bye-pocalypse coming up. 6 teams on bye, and just a whole lot to get into. So let's jump in. I know it's late, but I promise you it'll be worth it. Let's go.
Best in the business when it comes to a quarterback sneak. All right. We are back. It's been a while. It's been like 10 days or so, and I'm hype. But I got to be a little honest with you. I just cracked open another beer because I recorded the whole damn podcast and the mic wasn't on. There was no audio. I went to listen to it back to get ready to publish, so it'd be good to go in the morning before the games kick off, and there was no audio. It was just me waving my arms like a madman and no sound. So I'm back for round 2, and I'm going to try to match the energy I had the first time around, but it's getting late and I've had a few beers. So we're going to see how it goes. But just wanted to let you know where I'm at. Episode 9 is going to be one for the books. So let's jump in. So matchups from last week. First game we're going to talk about was me versus Andy. It was a matchup of the week. 2 top 3 teams going in. No longer 2 top 3 teams coming out. I take out Andy in the first game. Puts me to 3rd place and Andy all the way down to 6th. So sorry, Andy. I beat you. Next game, Rattler was climbing up the standings week by week. Rick gave him a little peg down. Actually, he gave him a big peg down. He gave him a beat down, led by Waddle and Hurts. Biggest point differential, I think, out of the 6 games was this matchup. Rick just gave it to Rattler. Putting Rattler to 8th. And now Rick to 4th again. Next game, Silverman. Silverman pulled it out with a late comeback led by Derrick Henry and probably another player, but he was losing to Dickey. That's embarrassing. Now, you won, so it's not embarrassing, but nobody's trying to lose to Dickey. Dickey's now in dead last, and he's the sole team with only 1 win. And Dan is now in 5th. Then in our next game, we had Dan Santola and Kamara's 38 points. Putting Caveney to sleep. Pour one out for the guy. This places Dan in 2nd place and Caveney to 9th. Then we had our second matchup of the week, the one for our 2 bottom teams. And man, we should have some music going for you, Jovi. Let's go, brother. You get your 2nd dub of the year after 6 straight losses. In the highest scoring matchup of the 6 games, you pulled it out. And you needed it. You needed that win badly. So congrats. You win our other matchup of the week. James, you put up a good fight. But sorry, you are now in 10th place. And Jovi survived. And he's in 11th place right behind you. And then for our bonus edition matchup of the week, the Chow Tracker. Chris wasn't able to get it done. And we're all very disappointed with you, Chris. you couldn't end Chow's hot streak. Chow's still in first place, in sole ownership of first place too. And Chris, it didn't hurt you too bad. You're still just in 7th, but man, we would have loved it if you could have pulled out that dub. For individual performances, a lot of big names, not too many surprises this week. Foreman, huge performance. He cracked the top 6. Then Pollard, I'm sure James is just like waiting for Zeke to just get shut down because Pollard's a monster, but has to share the rock all the time. And then some pretty standard names up there. Kamara definitely gets a shout out. He's the number 1 scorer on the week. Hadn't had a touchdown all year, and then gets 3 last week. So that's big. And then that's James getting 2 guys. Or actually, does James have Kamara? No, he doesn't. Never mind. I'm making shit up. That's what happens when you drink and stay up really late to do podcasts. But big game for Kamara. So a bunch of top performers, a bunch of big games. But let's get into what really matters, the prizes.
I'm a bad boy.
So for our Andy Bobandy team of the week, Joe V, let's shout you out again. We haven't been able to talk positively about you much this year, but we get you right now. $20 is going to your Venmo for being the highest scoring team of the week. Big performance of 166. And then James, sorry, buddy, you had to go up against him, but you do get a prize for that because you dropped 155, which might be that might earn you $20 in some weeks, but this week it gets you 10 for being the best loser. So congrats to you two. You will have the money in your Venmos tomorrow morning. When you watch this, let's go to our survivor. And our survivor elimination is Radler. Sorry, buddy. Sorry. I've been rooting for you, but definitely excited to see you go. See you later. The funny thing is about this survivor eliminations, I haven't actually fact checked this, so let me know if I'm wrong about this. But I'm almost certain that everyone who's been eliminated from the survivor pool was also the last place team that week. And if you don't realize why that's weird. So of course, in week 1, whoever was the last place team, the 12th highest scoring team in the league, they were going to get eliminated. But as you go through the week, you're competing with less people. So in, week 3, you're only competing against 10 people. So you could be the 10th highest scorer and get eliminated. But I'm pretty sure that every week, one of the remaining survivors just had a terrible week and scored the fewest points in the league. Haven't fact checked this, but it's something I've been kind of watching. And it just seems like every week there's someone in the survivor pool that just is terrible and gets 12th place and is obviously eliminated at that point, which has made my job much easier when trying to figure out who is eliminated each week. But it's something I noticed. We'll see if the trend continues. I doubt it because we're getting pretty small on this list, but thought it was interesting. So sorry, Radler, you made it pretty far, but you are out. So let's talk about the prizes, where we're trending. We're coming down to the wire for $50 prizes. First up, we got the number 1 seed. Of course, that's Chow. He's, like I said, he's got sole ownership of first place right now. Dan's behind him with 6-2. Then we have multiple teams at 5-3. Me and Rick being the 3rd and 4th place teams. We're trying to catch him, but it's been tough. Someone needs to beat Chow so we can all have a chance at this $50 for most points. How many weeks is Andy going to be at the top of this list? I know the gap's shrinking, but has he been at the top since week 2 and only lost it for 1 week? I think that's what's been going on here. So Andy's at first for most points, then me, then Chow, then Dan Santola. That gap between the top 4 is only 27 points, so it's not a huge gap. And there's others right behind us, but man, Andy's been up there a lot. Survivors, Andy again, Dicky, who's in dead last, Silverman, and then me. Only 4 remaining. This is coming down to the wire. These next weeks are huge. That's $50 on the line. Whoever wins this will almost automatically be the top earner of the season at that point. Then for our $25 prizes, Dan Santola still at the best week. No one's really come that close. Jovi made a valiant effort this week, dropping 166. But even that was 20 points short of that. So we're almost 2/3 of the way through the season. Dan, you got to be feeling good. That's you're getting close to locking that up. And then most points against, Andrew. Man, you're 4-4 for a reason. I get it. You're the top point scorer, but you're also the most points against. You've actually had more points scored against you as the top scorer than you scored. That sucks. I feel for you. I feel for you, one, because I used to be at the top of this list, but I feel for you because that blows. But I don't feel bad. I just feel for you because I'm glad. I'm definitely glad. And then behind Andy, we got Dick, James, Ryan, all trying to steal $25. Unfortunately, there's nothing you can do about that. This is really just the $25 unlucky prize. So that wraps up our $50 prizes and our $25 prizes. Top earners, Andy's still the top earner, and his name's on here multiple times. So at least you can feel good about that, even though you've mentioned that your team, you feel like it's falling apart. Other earners, I'm not going to talk about y'all. There's only one person I need to talk about right here, and that's Dick. Dick, you are the only person that hasn't won a single dollar back. Last week it was you and Joe V. What did he do? Went and won $20. What did you do? Nothing. You might want to make a move or do something. I don't know. Because yes, you've won your 2 rings, but if you come in dead last and don't win a single dollar and you're the only person who didn't win any money, I don't know if we'll ever forget that. So I don't know. Maybe try to win some money. Maybe not. You can let us have it if you feel like you don't need it anymore. So yeah, top earners or the bottom earners, that goes to Dicky. All right, so manager of the week. I usually get super hype about this. I love to shit on the terrible moves that were made or highlight some genius plays. But when I went through the matchups, there wasn't anything that really screamed out to me that it had to be the manager of the week. There was some bad moves, but there was nothing that needed really to be featured. I guess nothing that stood out over the top. So I'm taking this week and I'm going about it a little different. Our manager of the week is Joe V, because he got that big time dub when, he easily could have started to panic and make a panic trade, or he could have started to coast, knowing his chances of making the playoffs were bleak. But instead, he made a trade. He stuck with his team. And when he needed it most, he got a dub, and he made $20. So we're giving him the manager of the week for having one of the most important victories of the year, and just for trusting your guys. Jovi, thank you for your service, and congrats on the big dub this week. But that doesn't mean we ain't gonna shit on anybody. Like, we got a few people to crap on. We got a lot of honorable mentions, and they're all for shit decisions. First up is for me for trusting Yahoo projections. This is the second time of the year where I needed a waiver wire wide receiver because of injuries or bye weeks. And it's the second time this year where I did that went by Yahoo projections and got a goose egg. And the thing that sucks most about this is that I wanted to pick up Rondale Moore. A lot of rankings outside of Yahoo said that was the best pickup. He's obviously in a high-powered offense, obviously has had big weeks before. Marquise Brown's out. But I didn't want two Cardinal wide receivers in my lineup. That was, I guess, the big thing for me. And I got a goose egg. And if I would have taken more, I would have had a wide receiver I could have played again this week because he had a great week. And two, I could have potentially then traded him if I don't want two Cardinal wide receivers. And three, I would have won $20 this week. I would have been the Andy Bobandy team of the week. So I fucked up there, and I'm an honorable mention. Silverman, time to roast you. You picked up Isaiah Likely because Mark Andrews was injured. We all know the hype that Likely got in the preseason. So you thought, hey, there's potential. Maybe he could be a big-time player. You find out Mark Andrews is playing, and then you immediately drop Isaiah Likely. It's Thursday night. Like, hold him. Hold him until the game's over. See what happens. Maybe Andrews doesn't end up playing. Maybe he gets hurt. Maybe Isaiah Likely still goes off. Like, there was no need to make a move that quickly. You couldn't even watch the game. You couldn't wait 2-3 hours. And if you didn't drop him, he'd be on your roster now. You need a tight end. Andrews might not play. He might be a big-time play this week. You get mentioned for sure. That you're impatient. Why'd you do that? Andy, why the hell is Isaiah Likely not on your team? Dan dropped him, so he was available. Then nobody picks him up in with FAAB. He's out there for free. You're the Mark Andrews owner. You know he's questionable. You know if he doesn't play, you need a tight end. Why wouldn't you grab Isaiah Likely in the case that you need a tight end on Monday night? It's like literally the perfect player for you to have. No one else really can afford to wait until Monday, but you can. If that comes down to bite you, you're going to be the manager of the week next week again for this move. That was kind of foolish, especially because he's a really good player, it seems, at least for fantasy. Fourth up is Radler. I asked for any one of your running backs. You picked Christian McCaffrey. Obviously, it's 1 week, but it looks like it was the wrong move long term. But even short term, it was definitely the wrong move because not only did I get a bunch of points for it, but if you would have given me Barkley for, let's say, for example, I would have scored 20 less points and you would have scored 20 more points. And that would have made me the person who was eliminated from the survivor pool, and it would have made you a remaining survivor. So, at least in the short term, huge fuck up. In the long term, we still have to see, but it's not looking good for that either. And then last, I guess there's one benefit to me re-recording this podcast, because something I realized last time is that James 100% needed to be an honorable mention. He honestly could have been the featured manager of the week because he played someone who was out again 2 times this year. 2 times, James. And now I need to take a minute to really draw awareness to this. This is the second time this year you played a guy who was not playing. That is the number 1 rule in fantasy football. Maybe number 2 behind don't collude. Play someone who's playing. Brandon Cooks went out and you didn't replace him in time. And yeah, I think he was ruled out the same day as the game, but It's just unacceptable. You have to be mentioned here. And you know what? This is a reminder to myself, Mark, when you rewatch this podcast, put in your notes for next year's fantasy league to incorporate some sort of penalty when people play people who don't play. Because we can't have that. We're too high class of a league. So congrats to whoever's playing James this week. You get a free slot. But James, yeah, you could easily be the manager of the week for doing this, especially since this is the second time this season you've done it. So those are honorable mentions. We got a bunch of them. You all suck, and so do I. Injuries. Okay, so I've been telling you, I hate this page. I hate doing this. It's a lot of work. So I changed it up a little bit, simplified it. We got the buys and we got the injuries. We're not talking about old injuries. Not wasting any more time doing that. Bye weeks is a bye apocalypse. We have 6 teams on bye this week. I think we have another week down the road where we'll have another 6 teams. But this is the first one. Browns, Cowboys, Broncos, Giants, Steelers, 49ers. A lot of big-time players in there. A lot of startable players in there. It's a tough week right now. On top of that, we had a number of new injuries. Irv Smith, see you later. He's basically done for the year. Rashad Bateman, see you later. He's done for the year. We know that. Oh, don't have this on here. Michael Thomas, see you later. He's done for the year. Then Mark Andrews, talked about him. Cooper Kupp got hurt, but I think he's playing. Adam Thielen got hurt. I think he's playing. Gus Edwards got hurt. Not quite sure. Questionable. Brandon Cooks missed the game. James didn't play him. Jonathan Taylor, now out. It's been a shitty week for injuries, whether it was happening in game or in practice. And we got combine that with all the buys. You got to make up for it somehow. And we do that with the money, y'all. So let's get into that.
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money. Money, money, money.
And you better collect it.
Dollar, dollar.
Bad dollars. Not a long list of FAAB transactions this week, but some interesting ones. We got $26 on Rondale Moore, who I talked about, who I should have picked up, but didn't. Good pickup by James. Radler spent $15 on Huntley. Then Dan Santola spent $7 on Minnesota defense and $7 on Butker, kind of solidifying his special teams positions with teams who have already had their bye. Then Silverman spent $6 on Conklin, and then I wasted $1 on Treylon Burks. So let's see how we did. This is a fun week, actually. So first one was the biggest one for a number of reasons. I mean, most money spent, $26, but it's also like James wasted money, but it was still a pretty epic battle for Moore. He could have saved $13. The next highest bid was 12, but 9 other managers made a bid on Moore. He was the hottest player of the week, and I'm honestly not sure if there's ever been another player who had 10 people bid for. So while you wasted some money, definitely wasted some money, you got a guy that a lot of people wanted. So pretty fun one there. Radler, I'm sorry, your Huntley purchase, you could have got him for free. Santola, you butchered Minnesota defense. Nobody wanted them. You could have got them for $1, but you nailed it with Butker because Andy was willing to spend $6 on Butker. So you're $7. Perfect. And then Silverman, you spent $6 on Conklin, and you could have got him for $1. So a lot of money wasted this week on a small amount of players, but we also had some pretty close fought battles for a couple players. So good round of FAAB this week.
I'm Pickle Rick
For our transaction count. Pickle Rick, he hit the 50 transaction mark. He's at half a century, y'all. I'm honestly rooting for Rick to make the playoffs now, even though I said I'm afraid of his team in the playoffs. I want him to make the playoffs so we can see him hit 100 moves. He had 6 more moves this week. I only had 3, so now I'm at 32. I'm shrinking compared to Rick. I'm moving closer to third, which is at 24. Rick might be in a few weeks. Rick might pass second and third place combined. So I'm glad I added this. It's going to be fun to just watch Rick keep climbing the rankings, keep climbing the transactions. We're all rooting for you to hit 100, Rick. All right, so now we're at the most important part of the podcast. Coach Graceffa's power rankings. Now, last week I said I was going to switch up the formula a little bit. I was going to talk to Graceffa and ask him if he could change it a little bit so that, let's say a team scores a really high week, they drop 200 points, and then the second best team scores 150. There should be some added bonus there. Same with the fantasy analyzer. Like if a team, there was a point where Rick was by far and away the number 1 team. Now it's not true anymore, but there was a point there. But Rick was only getting a pretty marginal bonus for that. So I asked Graceffa to look into that, and he did. And I don't know if it's because Graceffa and math just aren't the best of friends, or if it was actually because this was actually a pretty big ask of him. It's just not worth it. It was really time consuming to try to change up the formula to account for the gaps in point scoring and the gaps in the fantasy analyzer. So we're keeping the formula that we have, and we're probably going to keep it for the rest of the year, at least until it absolutely fails us, which I don't think it will, because I think it's doing a pretty good job. So we're keeping this, and there are still options for me to make commissioner adjustments. And this week, I actually had to do that 2 to 3 times. I can't remember exactly. So let's get into the power rankings. Top spot, really not a surprise. It's Chow. He's still in the top spot. And honestly, I don't think he's getting moved from the top spot until he loses. It doesn't really matter what anyone else does. He has too big of a lead and has won too many games in a row for him to not be there. Second is me, your favorite villain, your mom's favorite principal, John Lent. 3 weeks in a row, walking away with dubs. Number 2 in scoring, I think. We're up there, and we're going to sit there until we lose. Actually, that's not true. Someone could pass me, but we're in the 2 spot. We get 1 bump up. Rick also gets a bump up, and you'll see there's a trend here with the top 6. It's pretty much mostly teams who won this week. Rick jumps up 1 spot because he won. We know what his roster looks like. He's back in 3rd. Dan Santola, he's also jumps up a spot. He gets a big time win, his 2nd win in a row. He had a pretty big fall from the top, but 2 weeks in a row, he's climbing up. And then Andy, the only team who's lost in the top 6 teams, actually his 2nd loss in a row, because all of the other teams around him won, he falls 3 spots. He falls from 2nd to 5th. And he had said he might be running out of milk, and there might be some truth to that. Lots of injuries. Cup banged up. Keenan Allen, he's back down. Mark Andrews hurting, re-injured. It's not looking too great for him, but he's still the highest scoring team on the year, and he's still only 4-4. It's not like he's fallen too far. So he's at 5th, and then Silverman rounds out our top 6. He gets a win, jumps up 2 spots. He's also 6th in scoring and has a 5-3 record. So that's our top 6. But it's close. It's close. The bottom 6, 5 out of 16, these 6 teams lost this week. So Radler actually jumps up one spot, even though he lost, and even though he was the lowest scoring team of the week. The fantasy analyzer really likes him right now. He's also not too far behind, and he's also the 7th highest scoring team on the year, surprisingly enough. So he's at 7. Chris also lost. He's at 4-4. He has really no depth. It's kind of scary when you look at his team. Like, bye weeks are not good for him. But if he can sneak out some wins in these next couple of weeks and during the bye season, he's going to be in good shape. He's still 4-4. James also lost. He, like Chris, stays flat. He's at 9. James is just desperate for a wide receiver, and I think we all know that at this point. You just spent $26 for more, but he's got some solid running backs, and if things turn around in the receiving department, he should be in good shape. Then Joe V. Finally, some good news to talk about in these bottom 6. He gets a jump up 2 spots from 12th to 10th. Only green team in these bottom 6. His record's only 2-6, but he's 9th in scoring. He's on the rise, at least temporarily, and you get rewarded for winning. Then Caveney, you got to fall down 1. Jovi jumps you. You've lost 2 in a row. When I look at your roster, the only person that scares me right now is Diggs. It's just not looking great. And then Dickey, I get why you were bragging about those rings, because there is nothing else for you to talk about. 4 losses in a row. Last in scoring. Last place in the standings. The only team with 1 win. Oh, yeah. It's not looking good. So you might want to do something about that. Those are our power rankings. They're getting hot. They're getting interesting. Definitely excited to see how these play out next week. Before we start to wrap up, 2 quick trades to talk about. First one between Caveney and Radler. Caveney put out a request for a quarterback. He needed someone. Radler now had disposable quarterbacks. So he sends him Mac Jones in exchange for Deontay Johnson, who no longer has to fight Claypool for targets. So pretty solid trade there. Addresses needs. Radler, wide receiver is his weakest position. Caveney needed a quarterback because of buys. Second trade also revolved around quarterbacks. Jovi doesn't like quarterbacks. He basically drafts kickers before quarterbacks. So he acquires Jacoby Brissett from Chris for Damian Harris, who at this point, I don't think he's even going to play this week. And he wasn't very good last week, but Chris needed some depth pieces and Jovi needed a quarterback. So, small trade there, low risk, okay reward kind of move, but these are the types of moves that lead to other moves down the road. So kudos to you for making some deals happen and doing what you need to do to get your teams into the shape that you want. Okay, so I got a couple extra bonus sections this week, but do want to talk about the matchups real quick. We got 6 big games. It's week 9. We got 2 weeks to the trade party and 5 weeks to the playoffs. In our premier matchup of the week, we have the 5 versus 6 seed, Danny Silverman, Senor Pobre Holmes, versus Andrew Bennett, Mrs. Berkey's Buoys. Big matchup. Andy's on the fall. Dan's on the rise. Whoever wins this will stay in the top 6. Whoever loses will most likely fall out of the top 6. So big matchup there. Our other matchup of the week for the bottom of the standings, we have the 2 bottom teams in the league. Jovi, coming off a big win, now in 11th place, goes against Dick, the formerly 11th place team, to see who's the worst team in the league right now. If Dick loses, I'll have to honestly look through the schedule to see if he's mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. There's a chance he is. If Joe V loses, he might even be eliminated from the playoffs. I don't know. But if he wins 3-6, he's going to be clawing his way back up. So big implications there. And then, of course, we have the bonus edition. We have the Chow Watcher. Chow's going up against Radler this week. And Radler, unfortunately, has Chubb and Barkley on a bye. Maybe someone else. So it's going to be a tough ask. But let's see if you can pull it off. Nobody wants Chow to keep winning. So Radler, please pull it off. As I mentioned before, we're 2 weeks to the trade party. We're less than 2 weeks. When you watch this, it's going to be Sunday. We're going to be 12 days away from the trade party. So I have one quick update here. Tomorrow, I'm going to be sending out a Google Doc. And this Google Doc will be a sign-up sheet for you fuckers to buy shit for the party. I'm not trying to go to the grocery market and buy everything and start sweating as I pack a grocery cart around and push it around, and it's going to take a lot of time. Then I'm going to figure out all the money. I don't want to do all that. So I have a Google Doc where you can sign up to buy breakfast, lunch, snacks, drinks, whatever. I don't care what you buy. Just bring some food to the party, and that'll just make it easy for everyone. So if you're going up on Friday, you will sign up. I already claimed the light snacks for Friday and Saturday. I'm going to buy the snacks. So go in there and sign up for either breakfast on Saturday or drinks or dinner on Friday. And then, buy some shit so we have food and the house is stocked. Maybe don't go too aggressive because we might go out to eat since the casino's right there. But make sure you buy enough shit so that we're not having to scramble for food. And also, ideally, if you buy enough stuff that could potentially last till Saturday, then we'll be good to go there too. Rick, Dick, and Chris, since you're going up only on Saturday, you don't have to sign up for anything. We'll let you know what we need that morning, and you can figure it out on your way down. So I'll send this out. Please sign up and please buy some stuff. I also have a list of things to potentially bring: air mattresses, speakers, cards, drinking games, whatever. If you have poker chips, maybe bring some poker chips. We can fucking gamble while we watch sports and drink and talk trades. But yeah, so go sign up for something so I don't have to buy everything. Last up, and this is going to take a minute. This is going to take a minute, y'all, because I got something to say. I got something to say. Let me make sure this is good to go. Y'all want to bust balls? You're just a straight shooter, you say? Then let's bust some balls, y'all. Let's do it. I got something to say. I can shoot straight. Oh, laptop's dying. Let me plug it in real quick before I cry and have to re-record this again. Yeah, I got something to say. First off, Rick, you're nervous. You're nervous, Rick. That's why you're resorting to mind tactics. Rick's been coming at my trades all year long and then makes this claim that I'm trying to make him look like the bad guy. I wasn't even the one who said you had an all-star team. That was Radler. Rick's just trying to soften all of you up to him and get you to stop doing moves with me. I mean, he basically admitted his plan in the chat, but said I was doing that to him, even though there's really no evidence that I was doing that at all. If I were you, if I was anyone else but Rick, I'd expect some trades requests from him for your best players, and he won't incorporate any of his best players. That's probably already happened, actually. I would bet pretty confidently that he's made some trade offers for your best player. And yeah, I wasn't even going to share my opinion of Rick's trades publicly because I don't want to play defense on someone else's moves. But now I feel like I have to, so he doesn't fool you. So let's quickly talk about his trades. Rick's first trade, he gave up a QB3. Yeah, he gave up a QB3 for an RB1. QB3 for an RB1. Let that sink in for a second. Fournette, the RB1 he got, proceeded to score 31 points in the next week and then 19. So that was Rick's first trade. QB3 for RB1. His next trade, he gave a wide receiver 2 in Olave. I'd call him a wide receiver 2, but Rick at that point had only started him 1 week. So to Rick, I guess he was a wide receiver 3 or 4. It seemed like, at least based on how he played him. And who did he get for that wide receiver 2, 3? He got Waddle, a clear-cut wide receiver 1 to his back. What does Waddle do when Rick gets him? Scores 11 points, then 27 in the next 2 weeks. So wide receiver 2 or 3 for wide receiver 1. Trade number 3. This is the best one. Rick gives up a QB2 for a top 5 wide receiver in Jamar Chase. Yes, Chase got injured. Chase also scored him 29 points the week he got him before he got injured. Imagine seeing that every week, just Chase just outscoring Goff, because that's probably what would have happened. Yeah, so QB3 for RB1, wide receiver 2 for wide receiver 1, QB2 for wide receiver 1. Those were Rick's trades. Rick's talking about my trades being lopsided, but like, come on, look at his. Yeah, I traded for Christian McCaffrey. I also gave up my first round pick in Justin Herbert, who would be a clear-cut QB1 for half the teams in the league. And now Christian McCaffrey's on a bye. So I ask you this, like, if Radler picked Barkley instead of Christian McCaffrey, who's rated as the running back 1 overall right now, would y'all be crying like the way you are? I doubt it. Next up, Chris. I'd ruin my eggs if I put the salt on them that you are spewing out. You got more sodium in your text than Mickey D's does fries. Guys, don't bring any spices to the Airbnb. I know you're signing up for food, but don't bring spices. Chris got enough salt for all of us. Yeah. I get you were salty, Chris, that I got Mostert from Dan and not you. But, like, look at it now. I might have lost that trade. You might just be overreacting a little bit. And, like, all of you tend to look at how the trades help me, but you often ignore how they help the other team. The fantasy analyzer that I talk about all the time, after I made the trade with Silverman, he jumped up 2 spots. After I made and he's now a top 6 team. After I made the trade with Radler, he jumped up 3 spots. Could have been 4, I forget. And he's now ranked as the top. He's the 4th best team in the league, according to the analyzer. And, like, he's trending to that elite category on the analyzer tool. And the 5th best team is, like, significantly behind him. So y'all want to, like, talk your shit, but I think you're just scared. And Chris, you suggested I don't like your assessments of players, and I kind of played it off, but honestly, you were right. The ranking said that Kirk was better than Juju. So that's kind of how I make my assessments. So the fact that you ignore assessment or rankings, which you told me you don't really trust them, even though the experts make them. Yeah, I don't totally love your assessments. You also told me that Edmonds was eating into Mostert's touches when you were trying to get Waller for Mostert from me, even though Edmonds only averages 5 opportunities a game. So like, yeah, I'm not sure I love your assessments. And the last one, you told me you weren't sure if you'd rather have Jacoby Brissett or Justin Fields rest of season when we were talking trades. So yeah, I guess I don't like your assessments because those are really bad assessments. Now, I don't know if that was just negotiation speak or if those are your actual assessments, but I didn't like them. So I have some free game for you, actually, Chris. It has to do with rankings. Like, I'd recommend when trying to make trades, like, go off the rankings for your pricing. If you thought Juju was better than his ranking says, then you should go trade for him. That's how you like win in trades. Like, you make a trade that's equal value according to the experts, but you think you know a player better than the experts, then you trade for them and then you win. Or if you think a guy is worse than what the experts say, then you trade them away and then you win. What you don't do is try to sell Waller at a tight end 5 price when the rankings say he's somewhere between 8 and 11. That's just my tip to you, because nobody's buying Waller at tight end 5. You want to get guys who outperform their rankings, which is exactly what I did when I traded Amari Cooper for Darnell Mooney last year. Obviously, according to the rankings, that was a bad move, but it helped me get into the playoffs because I expected Mooney to outperform Cooper in the next few weeks. So that's my tip. Use the rankings. Don't try to convince people of your rankings, because nobody's really going to listen to each other. You can't sell people on other things. Like, they got their own impression, and if it doesn't line up with the rankings, they're just not going to listen to you. So some free game for you. And maybe you won't be as salty next time when you look at the rankings. But Chris, don't worry. Don't worry. I know I might have been a little hard on you right there. You're not the only one who's been salty. And Rick, you're not the only one pointing your little finger at me trying to make me the bad guy. We got a lot of people in here who should be upset. But they're just upset with the wrong people. And I'm here to help you all see the truth. Who let Rick get Jalen Hurts late in the 4th round? Wasn't me. Wasn't Chow either. Both of us had our quarterbacks wrapped up by then. Who let Rick get Jalen Hurts in the 4th round? He was projected to be a top 6 quarterback, but he was not the 6th quarterback taken. If you think Rick's team's really good, maybe you shouldn't have let him get Jalen Hurts late in the 4th. How come y'all didn't draft Chris Olave or DeAndre Hopkins? If you were in your draft room and you're like, oh man, my wide receivers aren't great, maybe you should have went after some really high upside wide receivers like Olave and Hopkins. Just maybe. Andy, why'd you drop Kenneth Walker and Tyler Algier? You drafted them, didn't you? Knowing they were rookie running backs who were just an injury away from being high upside guys with lots of value. I traded Algier. Rick is starting Kenneth Walker. Why'd you drop them? And Chris, back to you, I guess. Why didn't you pick up any of those free quarterbacks you keep talking about? You keep talking about these free quarterbacks that me and Rick flipped for high value guys, studs, you actually say. Why didn't you pick them up? You noticed we were doing that and you just decided not to pick them up? Was Trubisky playing so well that you were like, oh no, I'm good with Trubisky. I'm confident in him being my number 3 guy. I'd argue if you have Trubisky as your number 3 quarterback, you need a 4th quarterback ASAP. So I'm confused why you didn't pick up those free quarterbacks, especially since you saw what we were doing. And honestly, that goes for every one of you. How come you guys didn't pick up those free quarterbacks? Or how comes you guys didn't trade your backup quarterbacks to these QB needing teams? This isn't the first year we've seen QBs go and get traded for people of value. This happens every year. And it's not like Rick and I were spending tons of FAAB dollars on these quarterbacks once they got hurt. A couple times we got them on the free agents, like for free. And it's also not like we had these great 3rd string quarterbacks. Like a lot of you had FAAB dollars that you could have spent on these quarterbacks or could have just beat us to them. And a lot of you had better you had better QB3s, backup quarterbacks, than we did. You could have got better deals than we did. But you just didn't do it. And I know that a lot of you would like to have Dak Prescott right now. And Radler would have traded Dak Prescott for almost any quarterback at that point because he was getting screwed in the quarterback situation. Dak's the QB9 rest of the season right now. Like, if you had Carson Wentz as your backup, if you had Jimmy Garoppolo as your backup, like there's a lot of backups that probably could have been traded for Dak, and you just didn't make the move. And I did. And I bet a lot of you wish you had made that move. I don't know if you can blame Radler for that. He needed to get rid of him to get some real points in there. So between all these like missed opportunities in the draft and the waiver wires and the trade, it kind of seems like all of you are responsible for creating the monsters that you now fear. You're pointing your fingers at the wrong people. Pointing them at me, pointing them at Radler, pointing them at Dickie, pointing them at Rick. But like, I'm pointing them at you. I wouldn't blame my dog for eating food that was left on the ground unwrapped. Like, that's not on him. That's not on Boba. That's on me for leaving the food there. So how about you all stop leaving treats around, and then maybe me and Rick will stop eating. That's it. Class is over. How do I do this? I was going to drop the mic, but I can't. Lent out.
I shoot a shot. I'm coming in hot. Yeah, coming in hot. Just like the fajita. I write what I live. My life in the speaker. I'm nice with the flow. Just like the demeanor. I'm feeding my fam. I'm feeding the meter. They got the iron while I got the steamer. I bring the fire, but you never see.